here comes a Troy police car with the sirens blaring at a high rate of speed, and they stop, and they begin
Boys in blue.
They begin to do their thing. This is discrimination. This is racism. You only did this because of the color of my skin and how I look. If it was anybody else, you would not have done this. And I laid it on thick.
This podcast is brought to you by Excelsior Advisors. In New York State's fast-paced political landscape, you need more than just advice. You need action. That's where Excelsior Advisors comes in. Excelsior Advisors, based in the heart of Albany, brings decades of insider experience to the table. Our team of seasoned lobbyists and consultants are capable of moving the needle in the political arena. We've helped businesses, nonprofits, and organizations secure funding, navigate government regulations, and make connections that count. At Excelsior Advisors, we'll be the bridge between your business and New York's political decision makers and stakeholders. When it comes to success in New York's complex political environment, Excelsior is in a league of its own. Ready to elevate your business? Visit ExcelsiorAdvisors.com today and begin your journey.
All right. Buenos dias, noches, tardes, whenever it is that you listen to, hopefully, this podcast. This is Vida Latina, the virtual barrio. My name is Dan Irizarry, and I will be your host, and I'm accompanied by my son, Daniel, not a junior, who is my Gen Z advisor and sartorial
consultant.
What would you say? Consultant, whose advice I rarely take. Daniel, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody. I'm Daniel Irizarry, and you're watching Vida Latina Upstate. I'm ready to get started.
So by way of introduction, I am a Puerto Rican born and raised in the South Bronx in El Barrio. And my journey in upstate New York began around 30 years ago when I was working for HPD.
Isn't that the virus?
No, New York City Housing Preservation and Development.
It clears that up.
And thank you. And so at that time, there was a lot of violence going on. The crack epidemic was at its apogee. And I had witnessed far too close for my comfort two murders. And I decided, well, it was about time for me to look for greener pastures. And it just so happened at that time that there was discussion among the political circles in New York City that there was a need in upstate New York for Latinos to come in and be part of the decision-making process that was taking place in the state capitol. And by that, I mean, they needed people, Latinos, to come and work in state government.
They needed more representation for the population that was here, and they needed to draw more people here. Something to that effect.
The people who were representing, the large and growing Latino community. And so I said, okay, let me check it out. So I put together my resume, and I got in a rental car, and I came upstate, and I decided to land in Troy because the hotels were cheaper than they were in Albany. And I found a motel, and I decided I was going to stay there, and I was going to send my resume out and do interviews and try to find a position in state government and just move up this way. And I also wanted to check it out and see if there was any ambiente, like we say in Spanish, right? If there was
an
environment that was conducive for me.
Milieu.
Yeah, keep on. Get your thesaurus out. So I made my way up here, and this incident that I'm about to relate really crystallized for me what would become my entire approach to being a Latino in upstate New York, and that's why I think it's important to relate it. So,
what story is that?
I'm up in the motel in Troy. I can't remember the name of it. It's no longer there, probably. It was off of Hoosick Street, which is the main drag in Troy. And as I said, I'm using it as my headquarters to go on interviews, et cetera, and trying to get my feel for the lay of the land. And I think one of the most relatable aspects of the people who have been here for a while will understand of this story is the desire to find community while you're up here. So I came at a time when there was very, very little Latinos.
Sparse population.
The population was dispersed. It was not as if you can go down the street and connect with the local bodega or find a barrio where there was a concentration of Latinos. We were spread all over the place, just because of the migration patterns that we followed. Some of us came to work in government. Some of us came to study in the university. And so when you come up here from New York City, you're hungry for that ambiente, for that sense of community. So in my case, I ended up going back and forth to New York City a lot for culture, for different things, and also for like the bare necessities of life as a Latino, like food, like going down there for, cop some cassettes or
Compra.
some to make a compra, which what were you saying that was the name of it, and for Gen Z was
Oh, like a hall.
a hall.
Food hall.
Yeah, food hall. So if you didn't have, you can find plátanos up here. If you couldn't find other root vegetables, if you had no sazon, if you had no Goya beans.
You didn't have
or
Juan
any of
Bobo's
that.
big pot.
Yeah, we didn't have that big cauldron that people would make arroz con gandules in. Your only bet was to go down to New York City. So many of us, when we did that, we would ask friends if they wanted stuff. So you'd go down there basically on a mission, not just for you, but for the community that you found up here, of people who had no access to these things. And so it was not infrequent that these journeys were made for provisions, for lack of a better term.
So who makes this journey?
So your friends, your family, people you just meet, and they say, "I'm going to New York City to do a compra," and you would say, "Okay."
Yeah.
Le encargabas algo. You'd make a list and you give it to them. So that's what I did in this one instance for a friend of mine who lived in Utica, which had a similar scarcity of those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I went down there, got bags and bags full of stuff to share with my friend.
Verdura.
Verdura, canned goods, probably some corned beef in there. And I came up and I made arrangements for him to meet me at the hotel or the motel. And so that's what I did. I drove up in my rental car, and he was supposed to meet me at the address, right? And we'd sit down and probably talk and go out for something to eat, and then we'd, transfer the goods. So in this instance, what he did was he met me, but along the way, I think he caught the attention of the local police because he didn't know where he was going, and I don't know, he's probably riding a hoopty that didn't exactly look all that.
Stood out.
He stood out,
way.
right. He was Puerto Rican. He probably didn't have a late model car, and he was just coming to connect with me on the grocery front. And so we meet, and I say, look, why don't we just do this now, and then that way we take care of business, and you come, we hang out, we'll get some dinner, and then you can drive back to Utica. And he said, cool. But at that very moment when we're beginning to unpack and we're just moving some of the groceries, here comes a Troy police car with the sirens blaring at a high rate of speed, and they stop and they begin
Boys in blue.
They begin to do their thing. So it's like, okay, what are you doing? What's your name? Do you have any identification? The whole 9 yards. If anybody's been ever been stopped by a cop, they kind of know how that works.
Read you the riot act.
Right. But I mean, in retrospect, right, when you're talking about coming to a community where there weren't a lot of Latinos, right, and you think about it, I'm coming up in a car, meeting somebody else in a car at a motel.
Yeah, it all looks, it all looks very suspicious,
right,
I gotta say.
Exactly. However, when that's not your thing, you're not looking at it in those. Yeah, you're innocent. So there they came, and there we were, and they separate us and begin to ask us questions.
Trying to
little
get one
by
flip
little,
on the other.
Yeah, something like that. And I started getting really annoyed at a certain point. So, oh, what do you got in the car? You mind if we take a look? And at that point, I probably should have said, produce a warrant, or what is your probable cause? And so I started dropping names. I said, I work with Judge so-and-so. He's like the administrative law judge of the Office of Court Administration for the civil part. And I start mentioning other names. I finally say to him, I'm up here because Angelo Del Toro from East Harlem was asking people to come and interview at the state because they needed Latinos to represent the Latino community. And And when I said that name, all of a sudden he pulled back, and I could tell that
You
like
no
the
longer
conversation.
thought you were Benny
Well,
Blanco
no.
from the Bronx?
Well, he might have thought that, but he checked himself because he knew the name, and that was a fairly powerful name at that time.
Yeah.
And so
This is your introduction.
yeah, and this fellow began to put everything back in the bag, and all of a sudden he became very polite, and he lost that whole belligerent tone. And he basically, after I was writing him and telling him this is discrimination, this is racism. You only did this because of the color of my skin and how I look. If it was anybody else, you would not have done this. And I laid it on thick. And so by the time the end of the interaction took place, he was asking me if I would come for an interview at the precinct. That they needed some officers.
And there you go. So that's your first real experience upstate.
That's my introduction.
Real upstate
to the capital region. So that was kind of what set my mind in the direction of advocacy, right? Because I thought, if they're treating me like this, who knows what else is going on in the community.
And there was a community there at the time of Latinos, of Puerto Ricans.
So,
and you and your friend from Utica, yes?
So my friend in Utica, there was probably a larger population in Utica at that time, Puerto Rican community.
Right.
And you have to understand, when I say dispersed, we were here, and we'd been here for many, many years, especially in a place like Amsterdam, New York, right?
Amsterdam.
Rico. Well,
unflatteringly called
Puerto Ricans ended up in Amsterdam because of Calico, because of the Cabbage Patch dolls, and also because I believe they used to make bricks there as well.
Some sort of industrial reason.
So there was an industry there, and Latinos are, like everyone else, always looking for work, and that's how a large Latino population came to make Amsterdam its home. And here in the capital region, it's a different kind of migration pattern. It's for work, but you're talking about professionals mostly, at least in that time frame. And now it's migrants. Now it's people who
we'll get to now eventually.
Right. So going back to those days, there was you were hard pressed to find a can of beans at the local grocery store. You would hear about people getting together.
Like salsa nights and all
that. There would be Viernes Social in Troy, and people would go out and dance. You would find a DJ. So that was a lot of the social interaction that took place. Like if you knew somebody who ran a bar and you said, I want to do a little salsa night, they'd give you a Wednesday night or a Tuesday night, and you'd call all your friends, and you began to meet people like yourself who were working in government, who came from Brooklyn, who came from the Bronx, and so that's how community began to form. But again, we were talking about
decades
dispersed
and also
community,
time,
and also
right?
some time along the way. So that's kind of the origins of it.
So you feel kind of isolated from this community you've always had since you were born in the Barrio in the South Bronx, and you've kind of always had a tangible community.
Right.
So how do you remedy this feeling of kind of isolation from the community? How do you form and kind of organize in the community?
I'm really glad you asked that question. That was tough. So I was working at the state. There was maybe 3 other Puerto Ricans in an agency of 400 people.
They call 4 Puerto Ricans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Assembly with intent to riot. That was the big joke. Yeah. So we started trying to explore. I would go out with my buddy, my friend Eddie. We would try to find where other Latinos were, what they were up to. Occasionally there would be the Latino restaurant, like El Coche, which was on.
Salsa Latino.
Well, the El Coche was a restaurant that opened, so that you'd have these places that would pop up, and you began to feel that there was, in fact, a burgeoning community that was starting to form, right?
Well, tangible, more so.
Right. Well, they were growing.
Everybody.
Well, yeah. I mean, you didn't have like a unified effort, right? So
you began
for me, it was always about creating community.
Yeah.
We didn't have a space. We didn't have a place to congregate at that time. We had maybe some offices here and there where there was Centro Cívico, which had been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And there was Hispanic Outreach Services. And I joined that group, and I became its chairman.
Talking about listeners.
2009.
2009. Okay, Obama's first term.
Something like that, yeah. And then the height of financial crisis, right?
Yeah.
So I became the chairman, and Mickey Jimenez, who we'll learn a lot more about in later episodes, she became my vice chair, and we struck up a friendship.
And this is a
That's
Catholic.
lasted all this time, and this
Catholic
is under Catholic Charities, yeah. And it was the oldest existing Latino nonprofit or Latino focused nonprofit in the area. It had been around for 25 years. Started out as the Hispanic Apostolate way back in the day.
Apostolate,
Yeah. And so one day, as I'm trying to pull together this group of Latinos and make this a viable stand on its own organization, Catholic Charities calls us in and has what I call the last lunch.
Yeah.
Where they give us lunch and they tell us
Like the Last Supper?
Yeah, exactly. Boy, you're quick on the draw. So they bring us in and they say, guess what? We're shuttering.
Pope said,
Yeah, Pope.
cut it.
And that was really, for me, it was an insult because it was just at the time that the 2010 census had taken notice that the increase of the Latino population in the Capital District was greater than any
minority group.
Proportionately, no, was greater than any increase in any metropolitan area.
Gotcha.
And it was a piece that ran in the Times Union. So there was an explosion of Latinos, of the Latino
So how did you
population.
deal with the fallout from this, the ruins of this, the HOS, the Hispanic?
So,
Services
I had,
Program?
I had gone to school with some Puerto Ricans, again, one of 3 or 4 Puerto Ricans at
I was
Fieldston
one of 3
School.
as well. So
Yeah, that's true.
continue the tradition.
Right. All right. Legacy. And so at school, at prep school, 3 Puerto Ricans from the South Bronx, like myself, who went on to different colleges and universities.
Different industries, yeah.
My friend ended up in banking, went to Harvard, and he joins this not-for-profit and blows this not-for-profit up with his wife, his then wife, and some other people. And
What was the not-for-profit?
it was called Promesa.
Promesa.
And that Promesa is one of the oldest Latino organizations and one of the largest in the country, probably the largest Latino-led social service agencies in the state of New York.
So
And I served on its board for 13 years. But
So what do you form? And
I went to my buddy. I went to the CEO at the time
Promesa.
through an introduction that was made by our main underwriter, Excelsior Advisors,
Yeah.
Alfredo Vidal,
Alfredo
and
Vidal.
he connected me with Raul Rusi, who was the then CEO, and I convinced him to sponsor us. And
Form what becomes.
well, we founded Capital District Latino Advocacy through Interneighborhood Outreach Services, which the acronym is Latinos.
Capital District,
Latinos.
Latinos, and Latinos is all capitalized. 'cause
That's
it's an
right.
acronym.
That's right.
For some odd
That's right.
reason.
Don't you forget it.
Go ahead.
Anyway, the point being that was the founding of that organization is what we see today in the form of the Cultural Empowerment Community Engagement Center.
We know
at
the church,
160
yes, in Albany,
160 Central Avenue, and that's been my life's work, together with other people who have always supported us, especially Mickey Jimenez, and we have created community in that space. I'm thinking there's content out there, there's conversations that are being had, there's political movement.
Yeah.
There's
Commentary.
a young woman running for the first Latina running for state assembly in the Capital District. Her name is Gabriela Romero.
Gabriela Romero.
And we should be listening to her.
Discourse with her.
On we don't have a radio station. I don't have the money. I'm not going to start a CNN. I'm not going to.
Turner.
I'm not one of those people. But what I can do is I can bring people together from the political space, from the nonprofit space, from business. A lot of people I met along the way.
Restaurateurs.
I want to connect businesses with customers, right? If you want to sell a Chevy, I say Chevy. If you want to sell, what's the high-end car?
Tesla.
If you want to send a Tesla, I don't think there are any Tesla. If you want to send a Tesla to a Latino, you're a Tesla dealer. How do you reach that community? And
Maybe
that's
a
part.
medium.
That's part of what I see, and it's important that we control the narrative about our community, right? That other people don't control it for us. They don't put us in a box. They don't depict us as just migrants who are coming willy-nilly from the southern border.
We're not coming from the southern border, to be clear.
Well, right. Well, we're further south than the southern border. But anyway, the Caribbean. But, we have to seize the narrative about our own community so that others don't seize it for us.
So that's what Vida Latina Upstate is going to be about.
Right. It's the idea of the virtual barrio, right? It's a place. It's a space where conversations take place. Like if you're in the barrio, you go to the grocery store.
Barbershop.
You see Doña Fulana. You talk about what's happening with her family. You might talk politics. You go to a restaurant.
Who got arrested?
Who got arrested? Right, but we can talk about. I'd love to do reviews about Latino restaurants. They're popping up everywhere. So let's go in there. Let's send you in there and you can rate the food. You can do one bite. That's everybody knows the rules, kind of thing. But en español,
huge in the cigar space there. Eric Espinosa with Espinosa cigars, things like that.
So
there's a lot of industries.
So yeah, the idea is that you don't have to be physically in a barrio to have a conversation, to listen to the experiences, to share space with your community. You can do it while you're, on your treadmill. You can do it on your way to work. You listen to this podcast, and you'll get a sense of what it's like to be Latino in upstate New York, the challenges we face,
the discussions that are being had, and
that might not be being had, but that'll take place here.
We're trying to create a space that's conducive to open discourse, open discussion about pressing topics, pressing issues that are specific to the Latino community in a lot of ways, but also entertainment. There's going to be entertainment. There will be comedic elements.
Right. We have Bad Bunny is going to be like the second episode. Right?
Yeah.
So I think the most important message that I want people to take away from this inaugural episode, but the idea is for us to write our own narratives and for people to listen who want to learn about what's going on in upstate New York. New York City, I mean, you go, as soon as I pass Westchester County, I turn on the radio, there's 50 million. And, you hear nothing but Latino content. But you go north of Westchester County, and I don't know how far, somebody's signal goes, and all of a sudden, dead air, you don't hear anything Latino. I urge everybody who's listening at this point to tune in. Where can they find us?
So we're going to follow us on Vida Latina Upstate. That's on Instagram. Just look up Vida Latina Upstate. Also on YouTube, you can subscribe to our channel, which is Vida Latina Upstate. Look it up. Subscribe, and mainly focus on the Instagram, where we're going to be putting, keeping our followers abreast or aware of the coming episodes. So the idea is that we're going to have an episode bi-weekly every 2 weeks, and it's going to drop at Wednesday at like 5 a.m. It'll be on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that
wherever
stuff.
Wherever you tune into your podcast.
Wherever you find your podcast, it'll be there. But the best place to go is going to be to go to the Instagram that says Vida Latina Upstate, where we'll posting clips of stuff like this and the upcoming conversations. And we're also going to be in Puerto Rico in 2 weeks. Well, when you see this, maybe we'll already be there. But we're going to be in Puerto Rico for Somos El Futuro, or now it's called Somos. Technically. And we're going to be, having conversations there. They're going to be different than the ones that we have here. But that's going to be a medium overall. And we're going to find everything by just following the Instagram and following our journey as we try to expand the conversation and offer our virtual barrio to everybody that's so
create community. That's what we're all about.
Create community. That's it. Vida Latina Upstate. New podcast coming soon. Follow us on Instagram at Vida Latina Upstate. We're going to be doing this every other week. Gracias.